on, there's got to be something in here. Aha! Yeah, score! Canned food. You know, I never thought canned food would be so important until the zombie apocalypse happened. You know, this could mean life or death, especially now. The zombie apocalypse never came the way I thought it would. You know, all the TV sci-fi shows show a bunch of people trying to survive and hold out for a cure. That's not what happened so far. In fact, the zombie apocalypse has happened in a way that reminds me of a game I used to play before, well, you know, the undead started walking around and the infected started eating my neighbors and friends. In fact, it was this game right here. This is a game called Zpocalypse from Greenbrier Games. Now, unlike other games in its genre, Zpocalypse doesn't have players combating evil hordes of zombies and hopefully holding out for some kind of rescue. No, Zpocalypse is very different. Zpocalypse is a game for 2 to 4 players. It takes about 100 minutes to play, and it's a game where the jig is up. The game is done. You know that the zombie apocalypse is here and there's not much you can do about it. So instead of holding out for a cure, you're going to try and take down as many of these infected as you possibly can before you meet your dire end. But there's a lot of things to consider. You have to keep your survivors fed, you have to make sure they're well equipped, and you only have a certain amount of days before, well, everything goes black for you. By killing zombies, completing quests, and doing certain things, you're going to earn victory points. The person with the most victory points by the end of the game is going to be the winner. So it's kind of like a competition where you all know you're going to die, so you know what? You might as well go out with a bang. You know, I seem to remember a time that I did a video on this game. Alright guys, this is Raine from Initiative Tabletop. Today we're taking a look at a game called Zpocalypse from Greenbrier Games. Now this is a post-apocalyptic survival horror game where you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and unlike other games, this zombie apocalypse has been happening, there's no way to get out of it, and instead of trying to look for a cure or trying to save yourselves, you're just trying to kill as many zombies and gain as many victory points as possible. So in the game, you're going to have some pretty sweet miniatures, these little survivor miniatures, and you're going to choose a color, and the survivor miniatures just snap right on to this little peg piece right here. Now I've noticed in some instances they don't want to stick together, so you just kind of have to keep working with it and eventually it'll work out. But essentially every player is going to control a squad. You only use 2 miniatures to represent your squad, but you can have more than 2 survivors in a squad. And survivors are going to look somewhat like this. Each survivor is going to have some stats down at the bottom. For instance, this is how much health they have, armor, smarts, and movement. They also will have either some kind of ranged ability or some kind of melee ability. Now, everything is cumulative in this game, so all of these numbers get added together with the exception of movement and smarts. And when I say that, each squad is controlled by a squad board. The squad board keeps track of all the information, like I was saying, your firearm skill, your melee skill, this keeps track of your health, this keeps track of your armor, and then your smarts and your movement is tracked over here. So you're only as smart as the smartest person in your squad, and you can only move as fast as the slowest person in your squad, which makes a lot of sense. But as far as your health, it's all cumulative. All of your survivors, you add all of your health together. That's what gives you your health, and then armor is the same way. Now, firearm skills are a culmination of everything here. So since this guy has a melee skill of 2 and the other guy has a range skill of 1, I would simply just put this at 2 and 1. And unlike the other stats, your melee skill and your firearm skill will never go down. It'll always stay up. Now, we'll get to what those mean here in a moment, but the firearm skill and the melee skill basically is how apt you are at combat. So in Zpocalypse, you're going to essentially play through a scenario, and scenarios contain a certain number of days. Now, a day is essentially a whole phase of the game, and you might not think about it, but a day can actually be quite a long time. Each scenario is kind of a little bit different. It tells you different setup, how things need to go, how many survivors, food, and weapons a player starts with, how many items they get. It gives you a quick play scenario, and then some of them have goals. Some of them just say stay alive as long as you can. The person at the end of the game with the most victory points is the winner. But for instance, this one says you only survive as a family. There's no goal cards. Now, when it says goal cards, it's talking about these. The game contains these secret goal cards that players are going to draw at the beginning of their turn. You see, turns in Zpocalypse are consisted of different phases. Phase 1 is scavenge, phase 2 is feed and fortify, then you've got something's happening, and phase 4 is combat. That's where most of the meat of the game is, and I'll go over that here in a moment. But at the beginning of your turn, you're going to draw a daily goal card, and each daily goal card is going to tell you, what happens, what your goal is, what you get for completing the goal, and then there's a challenge too, and if you complete the challenge, you also get some more stuff. So this is one of the ways to earn victory points, but in some of the scenarios, it says not to use these. There's only one way to win. So we'll put these aside. So the daily goal cards are actually kind of cool. They add a little bit of a flavor to the game, so it's not monotonous. You're not doing the same thing all the time. And the cool thing is you keep them hidden from other players. So you could be trying to sabotage them and have a secret goal card, and they just don't know what's going on. But the game comes with this victory point tracker right here. This is how you're going to keep track of all your victory points. Players start down here, and as you gain them, you go around the board. The cool thing is whenever you reach one of the splatters, you get a certain number of skill points, which you can put into your firearm skill, your melee skill. So it's kind of cool. The more that you kill and the more that you advance through the game, the more skillful you become, which is really cool. Like I said in the beginning, the scenario card is going to determine how many of each item each player starts with. For instance, let's just go with the main scenario. The main scenario says that we get 2 survivors, 2 food, 2 armory cards, and they have to be weapons only, and 1 item. So we're going to start with these 2 survivors, and let's just say that I've already added up everything on my board. We're going to get 1 item card, and items can be like ammo, extra food. We'll go over that in a bit. And then we get 2 food cards. Now there's 2 types of food in the game. There's radioactive food, and then there's regular food. Each survivor has to eat 1 food. So for every survivor that you have in your squad, they have to be fed. When they eat radioactive food, you lose health for every food that they consume. So they still contribute to your squad, but you lose health for every radioactive food. And then we get 2 armory cards, and they have to be weapons. So this doesn't count because it's an accessory, so we'll get rid of that. This one is a firearm. Firearm cards, they tell you what dice to roll. They also tell you different skills that the weapon has. For instance, let's go back to the squad board real quick. On the squad board, you're going to have different levels of your skill. And you'll notice that there's a splatter on the 5 and there's a splatter on the 10. Well, the same thing is on the weapon cards. So on the weapon card, once your firearm skill gets to 5, you roll 2 dice, and then it gives you an ability. And then when it hits 10, you roll 2 dice, and then it gives you another ability. So that as you level up, there's incentives to kill things and gain items and go up levels. So if we were setting up, we would try and draw another card, which we do here. This is a weapon. It's a melee weapon. It's a gumball machine because it's a zombie apocalypse and you got to use what you got. And the same thing applies to this one. It tells you, if your melee skill is at 5, do this. If it's at 10, do this. And here's a special ability that it gets. And the cool thing is that while the rule book is kind of scattered with how things are set up, it does do a good job of explaining what the keywords are. You just have to find it. It's scattered throughout the book. So now that that's done, we would have everything kind of set out here. We would have, our food and item cards we kind of hold in our hand, but the survivors and weaponry will go, you can put them over here, and then each survivor can equip a weapon, and then we'll get right into the game. So in the game, everybody starts off in the bunker, and each level has a bunker. Now when you set up the game, you can choose which tile set to use. There are, I think, 4 different base tile sets. Each one you can tell, because the base tile sets have a sort of glow. I don't know if you can see, it's a little yellow glow here. On the walls they have a type of glow, so you can tell that these are base tiles. You'll get these tiles set up, and it looks small right now, but on every turn you're going to be adding more tiles, so the board will fill up really fast. So let's go over turn phases, and I'll explain kind of what happens throughout the game during each turn. After everybody is set up, you start with the scavenge phase. The person with the least victory points is always the first player, because they sort of get an edge to try and catch up. At the beginning, you're going to draw a daily goal card, and this one is black belt. We'll look at this in some detail now. Remember your karate class at the local gym? You were pretty good. Start calling your bunker the dojo. You're determined to never be without a weapon. Your goal is to only use your fists during combat. Now, when that happens, when you use your fists, you can punch things even though you have weapons equipped, but if you punch things, you only roll a certain number of die, and you only kill a zombie, or not necessarily kill them, but fend them off on like a roll of 6 or better, so it's really hard. And in fact, it tells you that right here. So untrained, kill, roll 1 die, kill only on this Z marker. Now this is essentially a 6 in Zpocalypse. And real quick, I want to talk about the dice, because the dice are really awesome. I like the custom dice in this game. They're nice and shiny. The little pips on them are really nice and machined. They did a great job on the dice. Now back to the daily goal card. So it tells you if you succeed at this goal, then thank you, Sensei, you gain 4 victory points. So then you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 after you complete this. But there's also a challenge. It says practice makes deadly. Kill 6 zombies without using weapons but your bare hands. And if you complete it, it says, ah, Grasshopper, you have learned well. You gain the way of the fist. From now on, when not using weapons, your squad rolls 2 dice instead of 1 for unarmed combat. So that's pretty awesome. So there are advantages to doing your daily goal card. So after you've drawn your daily goal card, you'll actually draw a scavenge card. Now, scavenge cards are kind of like event cards that you can draw that do different things. So for instance, this one says hospital. You enter the radioactive wasteland in search of a hospital, but sure enough, you find the remains of one. The undead mill around almost every room, and flying under the radar is painstakingly difficult. You persevere in search of much needed supplies. Passing a room, you notice a patient still lying on one of the beds. Closer inspection shows the patient is still breathing. Once woken up, it's no surprise that they're confused but ready to come with you. So most of these scavenge cards are going to require you to pass a smarts test. What this means is that you look at your smart skill. For instance, mine is a 3, so I would roll 3 dice. And it says success on a 5 or a Z. So that means that on 3 dice, I have to get a 5 or a Z, and then it succeeds. If it succeeds, then it says pass to remain unseen. If it succeeds, then I remain unseen. Nobody sees me go in there. But if I fail, 3 extra zombies will follow you back. The scavenge card is how you're going to add tiles and zombies to the board. After you do whatever it tells you to do here, you have to roll another survival test, which is your smarts. If you succeed, for instance, in this card, you would gain 2 food, 2 items, an armory card, and then put 4 zombies on the board. If you fail, you don't necessarily get nothing. You get an item card, but more zombies follow you back. After you're done drawing your scavenge card and gaining your survivors and items and things of that nature, you will always draw a tile from the tile supply and add it to the board. And when you add it to the board, you have to put the number of zombies on it that the scavenge card told you. Now, there are 2 different kinds of zombies. Well, 2 different colors anyway. You've got your gray and your green. All the difference is that the green zombie just means 2 gray zombies. So whenever a gray zombie moves into a space with another gray zombie, they just turn into a green one to take up, less miniatures and less space on the board. But you'll go ahead and place this on the board, and if you place it as closest to the bunker entrance as possible, then you're going to gain a victory point. And that's kind of a way to gain some victory points, but it also makes things quite a bit harder. Any survivors that you acquired through the last turn, or however you acquired them, can be turned from sideways to right side up. Whenever you acquire a new survivor, they're turned sideways because they don't act in your squad until you feed them. And you feed them in the next phase, which we're going to jump into. So in phase 2, feed and fortify. You can trade items with other players freely, however you want to do it. You can barter with them. You can say, hey, I'll give you some food if you give me a weapon, however you want to do it. And then you have to feed your squad and then do your squad board maintenance. So basically, each squad member requires 1 food, and those not fed are placed in the bunker. If you don't feed your survivors, they're going to go to the bunker because they don't want to be with your squad. They don't want to be with a squad that's not going to feed them. Then, after you feed any survivors that you have, you recalculate all your stats down here, add their health, add their armor, their skills, and change them as it goes. And then you can do what's called fortify. Each survivor can work on a single task per day to kind of help fortify the bunker and fortify the area that you're in. You can, for instance, you can build sandbags. Sandbags provide rough terrain and stop enemies as they approach them. You can build a gate. You can build barbed wire traps, and if a zombie walks into a barbed wire trap, then it deals a damage, and then they're removed from the board. You'll find scrap as you go through and gain items for whatever reason, if you're drawing them because of a daily goal card or scavenge card or this, that, and the other. And scrap is used to kind of build different things to help fortify. So, I mean, it can really give you some strategic element to the game by just putting some different things out on the board. And after you decide that you're done with fortifying, then you go into phase 3. In phase 3, some bad stuff happens, and this is going to happen every single turn. You're going to draw a Something's Happening card. Now, these are kind of like the scavenge cards, except we don't get 1 per player. It's just 1 per round, and it's always going to be bad. So first of all, this kind of tells you the story of what's going on in your game during any given time. This one says, The Bitten. One of your survivors is looking ill. After close inspection, you notice bite marks. You've already tended to the wounds and the high fever. It seems to help. On your watch, you fall asleep, only to be awakened by the sound of a gurgling moan. Your former friend is rising from the dead. The slack face and hungry mouth covered with blood lurches right for you. And it'll tell you kind of what happens. Each squad loses 1 survivor and 1 health, and then starts with an additional zombie right next to them. Now, based on what night you're on or what day you're on, it will tell you how many zombies you place on the board, and how many spaces they move when they activate. Now, when the Something's Happening phase takes place, you draw 1 tile per player, and then you add it to the board following the same tile placement rules as with the scavenge phase. Each tile that you place is going to come with this many zombies on it, so the board is going to get full really quick. And after the Something's Happening phase is done, then it goes to combat. Combat is where most of the meat of the game is going to take place. So let's say, for instance, that I was here and that we had this tile here and we had 2 zombies on it. And you can put the zombies on the tile anywhere you want. So let's say that we had 2 zombies on it. Now, unlike other games, in combat phase, you're going to just repeat the combat phase until either all the zombies are dead or all of the survivors are dead. So let's take a look at what combat looks like. Players are going to choose 2 actions per their turn in combat. You can either attack, heal, search, move, or like trade, reload, or use a special ability. Most of the time you're just going to be moving and attacking. So my movement, for whatever reason, is a 6. Let's say somebody's really, like my slowest character is really fast. Alright, so when you move in Zpocalypse, you move space per space. And you can move diagonally, you just can't like shoot around corners or anything like that. So I wanted to zoom in so you could see movement a little better. So we're talking about my squad moving at 6. So what I would do on my turn is I would move 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I would get right here to where the zombie is. And once you reach a zombie, just like most other games, you're going to have to stop. Let's say I want to swing my gumball machine at him. My melee skill should be at a 2. So from 1 to 5, no matter what, you're always untrained in using a weapon no matter what. I would be untrained in using this weapon, and this weapon says if I'm untrained, I'm going to have to roll 1 die, and I kill on a 5 or a Z. So what I would do is I would roll the die. I didn't get the 5 or the Z, so I would miss. Okay, so that was my 2 actions. I moved and I attacked. Too bad I missed. But let's say that I didn't. Let's say that I rolled the almighty Z. Then the zombie in front of me would be removed from the board, and then I would be able to take that zombie on my next activation. So let's say that this was a green zombie instead. Whenever you attack a green zombie, if you inflict 1 hit, you just remove them, and then you replace them with a gray zombie. So it's just kind of like removing 1 from the space. After you take an action, however, the zombies that attack, they move according to their something's happening card, and then they always attack whoever they can attack in the area. So when zombies move and attack you, first the squad gets to defend themselves against any attacks. So first you'll roll 1 die for each survivor in your squad. Right now I have 2, so I would roll 2. Goodness, on a 5 or a Z, you fend off an attack. So if there was 1 zombie attacking me, I would roll 2 dice, 1 for each of my survivors. I got a Z, which means I fend off that attack. But let's say that I didn't. Let's say I didn't fend it off. After you roll the defense, you roll 1 die for each zombie who made it past the defense roll. Now, double zombies, the green zombies, always roll 2 dice on night 1, but on nights 2 through 4, they roll 3 dice apiece, and it is nasty. Let's say this zombie hit me. So I only rolled a 1, but the way that it works is you take damage equal to the dice total minus your squad's armor. Let's say that my armor was a 3, and I rolled a 5. That means 3 subtracted from 5 is 2. My health would go down by 2. So I would do 2 actions, my opponents would do 2 actions, and then it would come back to me if there were more zombies on the board. So aside from attacking and moving, on your turn you can also search, you can heal, and you can trade with other survivors in an adjacent space. If you go to search, for instance, different places on the map are going to have different search results. On the truck here, it shows search armory. So what I would do is I would have to be on this space, and then I would have to roll a number of dice equal to my smarts. For each Z or 5 I get to draw a card from the specified deck. So in this case, I would get 2 cards, then I could do whatever I wanted to do with them. Hold on to them, then equip them in the feed and fortification phase, things of that nature. And every time you successfully search, you have to put a token on the board showing that you've already searched there so it can be searched again. You can also reload a weapon as free action on your turn. Whenever you roll attack dice for ranged weapons, a lot of times it's going to tell you to roll the ammo die. If you roll any number other than a click, the weapon is still loaded and you can shoot with it again on your next turn. But if you roll a click, that means the weapon is out of ammo and you have to use an ammo card to reload it. So that way you can fire it again on subsequent turns. Also, you can heal yourself. If by searching or by a scavenge card or anything like that, you get a first aid, you can use it to heal yourself 6 wounds. You would continue this process until either all the zombies are dead or all of the survivors are dead. And now if all the zombies are dead, you start over again with phase 1 and it becomes night 2. So you're in the second day of the game. You're going to draw more daily goal cards. You're going to get more survivors and items through scavenging. You're going to continue to complete quests. I call them quests, but they're daily goals. You're going to continue to complete those until the objective on the scenario card is met. For instance, this one just says each player must complete all 4 phases of the game, and then the player with the most victory points at the end of the second day wins. But each one of these is going to say something different. So you could be playing through all 4 nights, and if you do, all 4 nights can take up to almost 3 hours or plus to complete, depending on how quick you are with your gaming group. But the game provides a lot of fun. You know, the boards are set up differently. Each tile has its own special unique rules. There are special searches that you can do on the tiles. Being able to set up your fortifications is really important to stop zombies from getting in. Honestly, you're just trying to do the most damage that you can before the game's clock winds down, and that's it. So there you go. That's a little bit about Zpocalypse. Zpocalypse. You know, back when I didn't have to worry about my brains getting eaten and watching all my friends die, Zpocalypse was a wonderful way to pass the time. You know, it's a long game and it just gets harder and harder the more you play it. But it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a refreshing take on the zombie apocalypse and the zombie genre in general. It's cool to just kind of not have to worry about survival and not have to worry about getting to the helipad on time. You're just, man, I want to find the most badass weapon I can. I want to equip it to whatever survivor I can, and I want to kill as many zombies as I can. It's a whole lot of fun, especially when you have more than 2 or 3 players, especially if you hit it at the maximum of 4 players. Now, I will say, the rulebook is kind of sketchy. The things in the rulebook aren't put together in a way that I would like, in a way that makes it easy for, say, to teach the game or to have new players learn it. But it is a game that once you learn it, it's really easy to keep going. If you're a gamer who's into zombies, but maybe necessarily isn't into something like The Walking Dead or something where there's an end-all scenario, I would suggest Zpocalypse. The miniatures are fantastic. The company, Greenbrier Games, does a lot to support the game. There's tons of expansions out to get all kinds of new models. Plus, Zpocalypse is a game that at least I took with a little bit of humor. The cards and the artwork are hilarious, and I think the game is kind of put together in that way, so that way you can maximize the amount of fun with it. So, with that being said, I gotta take this canned food, whatever it is, back to camp so I can get the rest of the survivors fed before nightfall happens. Thanks for checking out this video, and until next time, don't get eaten.